Hey guys, I'm Madden Gaming and I'm so excited for this one. And this one we got big update on the upcoming NFL 2K game. It's been so long since I heard anything about the NFL 2K. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm pretty excited because I never got to experience the actual NFL 2K5 back in the day. I wasn't playing those type I always played Madden, so I never got to experience that type of game. So can't wait to see what the updates are. Without further ado, jump right into it.
We finally know what's going on with the upcoming NFL 2K game that has been delayed for a couple of years at this point. Now, obviously, we've been waiting a long time for 2K to get back in the NFL gaming world. We have not seen a NFL game from them since 04, and we haven't seen a football game from them since 07 when they had All-Pro Football 2K8. Now, back in 2020, the NFL and 2K announced a partnership that they were back in business to make NFL games once again, but they would have to be arcade-style games because EA still holds the exclusive NFL simulation license, meaning they're the only company that can make an NFL game that is simulation. Now, what is and what isn't simulation is kind of a gray area, especially in video games, and that could be one of the things that is holding up 2K.
No
but we finally know what the
really
holdup is and what's going on. But before we get into that, if you do want to always be up to date on the NFL 2K game that's in development or other games like Madden 24 or the upcoming college football video game that's coming back next year, make sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon on. That way you never miss any of these important videos when they go live. Now, recently we got a bit of a leak as it pertains to the upcoming NFL 2K game from Mike Straw of Insider Gaming. If you don't know who Mike Straw is, I've mentioned him on this channel quite a bit over the years as he's always been a reliable source in leaking information as it pertains to Madden, NFL 2K, and other games. And this is what Mike Straw had to say. Things aren't looking good on the 2K front. They've restarted the process of that game multiple times. At least two times they've restarted the entire process, and you can take that and report that. I've heard from multiple sources that they have restarted the development of that game multiple times. The first plan just wasn't working, which happens. The second plan, they didn't like it. There was also a write-up on the Insider Gaming website where he said this. According to multiple sources closest to the game's status, the development of the NFL 2K game has been restarted at least twice since it began. To be clear, this isn't a case of the development itself not going well. More so, this is a case of the game going in a different direction that required major changes to be made. And we've seen this happen a bunch with games over the years. They restart the process, they don't like the direction, and they have to kind of start from scratch. And that would explain why it's been 3 years and we still have not seen this game yet, because last we heard a couple years ago it was supposed to launch in 2021 and then it was pushed back to 2022.
That's right.
As of right now, we have not heard too much about the game other than that they did want to make it as close to simulation as possible, and while it would be arcade, they wanted it to be a fun and deep experience, probably something like we see in NBA 2K's My Park. Now, push the microtransactions aside because that's one of the worst parts of the game, but when you talk about the depth the game has, what you're able to do, the level of customization, and the interaction with other players, that is what they're expected to do with an NFL arcade game, and they want to make the gameplay and the realism as simulation as possible without going over that line. And this is something that I've heard myself from multiple sources over the past years, is that that line is very blurry, and EA is definitely not going to just allow a company to come in and make a game that is that close to simulation when they pay the amount of money they do for the exclusive sim license. This game is going to have to be way more on the arcade side than kind of in the middle, which is what 2K was aiming for, which kind of leads me to believe one of the reasons this process has been restarted with this game might not be because they didn't like it or that it wasn't going to plan, but more so maybe that it was too close to simulation. And it makes sense because EA, when they're paying that type of money, their lawyers and their CEOs, you know, they're not going to let a game come in and breach the contract
and why would
they have in place. And you say, well,
paying too much money
is kind of arcadey itself at times. It's not the most simulation football game we've ever seen, but again, that's where the line gets blurry. Because you can argue that simply throwing a forward pass is considered simulation, right? That's a very extreme example of it, but it is. You're simulating playing football. You could say even if the game is 7-on-7, while it's not 11-on-11 like the NFL, you can still simulate real gameplay with 7-on-7 football. So simply just saying we're going to make the game 7-on-7 and adjust the rules and make the player models a little bit exaggerated isn't necessarily enough to label the game flat out arcade in terms of how EA views it and how the NFL themselves may view it, right? The NFL is also involved in this as well because they have a partnership with both sides here. They have to do right by EA and they also have to do right by 2K. But the NFL, in their eyes, has a simulation game on the market that's at least good enough. Otherwise, they would have made changes by now. And we've seen the NFL do this, right? Recently, they tried to end their exclusive partnership with Panini because they didn't like how they were going about things, but that kind of fell through a little bit. But it kind of goes to show you, if the NFL isn't happy with something, they're going to at least make that attempt to pull the licensing. And even though it didn't work out, they still try to do that. Whereas they've never actually tried to do that
Madden
with EA.
is terrible,
so no matter the different problems that Madden has had over the years, and trust me, they've had a lot of problems, we've never got to that point where they have tried to remove the license or even hint that the license would become available for everybody. So in their eyes, they're at least happy enough with Madden as their simulation game, and what they want are more arcade games on the market. And we've seen them lend their license to these arcade style games, right? We've seen them do stuff with Fortnite, even though it's just for skins, right? They're getting the brand out there more. We see them giving the NFLPA license to Wild Card Football, which was made by
check out that
recently
one. It's on my channel right now.
That arcade game, and maybe that's something more like 2K is going to be going for. But the problem is, there's a lot of these arcade style games coming to market now with the NFL license. Even if it doesn't have real teams, we have Wild Card Football, we have ESG Football that's on the way soon, which I'll be talking about more on the channel eventually. And so all these arcade games are already coming to the market, and they're beating 2K to the market. So it kind of leaves me to wonder, what is 2K actually aiming to do? They can't make a game that's close to All Pro Football. They can't make a game that's close to NFL 2K5. They can't make a game that is close to what Madden is, but there's already other arcade games that look pretty promising on the market that have the NFLPA license. They don't have teams, but they have the real players, which I think at the end of the day is the most important, especially when you're putting on an arcade game. We know the NFL wants more arcade options on the market, and they're apparently just fine with having the one simulation game out there. But what does this mean for 2K? Well, they are still working on a game. They are going to put out a game. They did not get in a deal with the NFL to not put out a game. That would be completely stupid. They did not waste all this time and money and development to just put nothing out. Even though they've restarted the process multiple times, they're clearly going to put something else. They want to reap the benefits of having a partnership with the NFL, and that foot back in the door could potentially lead them to being able to make a simulation game down the line. If they do really well with this arcade game and it sells well and people are interested in it and excited about it, well, that's going to leave the NFL to say, well, what could they do with simulation? And maybe they open the license up. Maybe they don't either. But this is something that 2K has to be looking at and thinking about. So they're definitely going to put a game out, and maybe we're going to see it now in 2024, which is going to be next year. And it doesn't mean that we have to wait till the end of the year.
And next year is coming up closer than you
earlier because they probably don't want it to release alongside.
I mean, we are already in October,
with
guys.
Madden. That really doesn't make much sense, even though it's not simulation. You still don't want two games competing with each other. The NFL wants both of these games to do as good as possible and make as much money as possible. Probably best if they don't release at the exact same time if they want to do that. But the fact of the matter is, the reason we're waiting is because they've had to restart the process multiple times, and part of that probably has to do with EA and their license, and 2K maybe trying to make the game a little bit more simulation than they're actually allowed to make. And I do believe when this game comes out, it's going to be a lot more arcade than what we initially expected, just based on everything we know. Otherwise, the game would have probably been out by now. But that doesn't mean that it can't be a fun game. There's plenty of arcade games out there that look fun. The new Wild Card Football game looks like a lot of fun. It's not simulation, but there's still a place to have a fun.
It's not even fun. It's just
Legend Bowl is a game that a lot of people love. It recently actually came to console. It was originally on PC. A lot of people love that game. Even though it's arcade, the gameplay is actually really good. And we know 2K knows how to kind of blur those lines as much as possible. We've seen them do arcade games in the past that had a simulation feel, and again, they're only going to be allowed to go so far with this game. But as far as they're allowed to go, I'm sure they're going to still put out a quality game. Let's just hope it doesn't have the same amount of microtransactions that they have in their other games like NBA 2K or even how EA does with Madden. Hopefully this is just a fun to play game that doesn't really require a lot of extra money, and hopefully because they're trying to get back into the space, they won't be as aggressive in that department because they're actually trying to compete, whereas with the NBA game, they have no competition, so they can kind of be as egregious as they want, and it doesn't really matter. Now, I mentioned a college football game earlier. If you want to know more,
Well, I did not know they had to restart twice. That is a lot, guys. That is crazy. But hopefully when it does come out, it'll be very fun. Like he said, there is a lot of arcade games coming to market. And I ain't gonna lie, a lot of the arcade games look really fun. Hopefully it come out 2024 and we'll get a trailer and we can react to it and be shocked, be surprised, be laughing, be happy, all those type of emotions. But that's gonna do it for me, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this reaction. Love you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.